Hello and welcome to another episode of So What Do You Actually Do? In today's episode, I got the chance to interview Everett, who works as a search engine optimization specialist, SEO for short. Everett works for Dentsu. Dentsu is a large marketing firm that provides a variety of marketing services, one of them being a search engine optimization. In his role, Everett makes sure that he helps a specific website have high rankings on search engines such as Google or Bing. He does that by understanding the search engine's algorithm, researching which keywords to target, and updating existing content by creating clear, compelling text to educate and engage the audience. I hope you like this episode, and let's jump straight in.
Yeah, so Dentsu is a very large marketing agency, and they provide pretty much any marketing service that you could think of. The area of Dentsu that I work within is search engine optimization, which specifically works with the Google links that you see whenever you type something into a search engine, usually Google. My job is getting ranks higher, so getting certain companies to rank for certain keywords that people might search, and to get those to show up higher on the results page, or the search engine results page, which is SERP, as we call it in the field.
So now that you are in this role, what do you actually do?
So it's very interesting because it can look very different depending on who the client is and what the engagement with that client looks like. So some of the accounts I've worked on have been customers for many years, and there's lots of processes in place, and it's a very straightforward week to week. We provide reporting on current search performance. We present on a call and talk about how we've done, what are new strategies we might want to implement, or what are some recent events that have taken place that could change how the landscape looks. And that would be a normal amount of my week. But there's also aspects where you could have a very new client and they'd have never done any search engine optimization, and they don't even know where to start. So that will usually involve a lot of auditing and trying to identify what do we want to rank for. When somebody types a word into Google, what words do you want to rank for? What phrases do you want to rank for? And there's a whole process for identifying that we'll go through with research, using all sorts of tools, and doing a lot of just kind of getting in the weeds and digging around.
So you mentioned you're basically tweaking the results, or not tweaking, you're optimizing the results for a company that is interested to have their products show up in terms of the search engines. And whenever a search engine, we can just simplify that, Google as a search engine. How are you doing that? Is it coding that you're doing, or is it calling Google's office and saying, hey, I want this to pop first? What is the nuances that are happening there?
One of the primary ways is ads, which is not a space that I work in. That is usually referred to as paid search. And whenever you Google something, if you see like a little ad pop up, that is paid search. So what I work in is organic search, which is all of the results that aren't showing up by directly throwing money at Google. And Google has, for over 20 years, been developing a search engine algorithm that sweeps through the web or crawls the web and identifies pages, and then decides which pages should show up higher than other pages. So it's a lot of like dancing with this black box of an algorithm and figuring out what to do to rank better. So some of what we do is copywriting. It can be as simple as trying to write new content that makes more sense. It offers more value to a user. But there's also a schema or markup that we might implement to better help Google understand what a page is. So there's different types of schema markup that you can use to identify like a frequently asked question, as an example. And that might show up differently in Google SERPs, or it might use that information differently. So important for me to note that in-house and agency SEO are very different. When you work in-house, so let's say you yourself are doing the SEO for your company, your new chocolate bar company, you would be doing in-house, what's referred to as in-house SEO. You own the website. You have full reign. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to really consult anybody to do that. When you hire and bring in an agency, we don't own that site. So the limits of what we can do really comes down to a scope of work and what's been agreed upon. Because naturally, as an agency, you don't want to do more than you've been paid to do. You want to make sure you fully fulfill and give the client a good value. So The SEO experience can be very different from an in-house SEO to somebody that works in an agency. And in the field, generally, agency SEO is easier from the standpoint of your hours are more controlled. You have a good management structure. There's, like we said, scope of works in place. Versus if you do in-house SEO, that can sometimes be a very different experience. There's not that same level of, I don't want to say protections because that makes it sound bad, but there's not that same level of like control over what you do. So it generally does pay more to be in-house, but you're also the guy, if that makes sense. You're the guy that does SEO if you do in-house SEO in most cases. If you're an agency, you're not the guy, you're one of a lot of people. So
got it. Makes sense. No, thanks for making that a note. You might have mentioned it in between the lines, but it would be nice if you can call it out. What kind of programs do you use to assist you in day to day?
Yeah, so we use a lot of the Microsoft suite. So PowerPoint, Excel, Word, all those fun stuff. Sometimes we'll use the Google suite as well. So Google Word, Google Docs, or not Google Word, Google Docs, Google Sheets, or Google's PowerPoint. There's also a large number of online tools that we use. Google offers and has a lot of tools like Looker Studio and Google Search Console. Those are tools that Google owns and produces themselves to help view rankings. SEMrush is another online tool that I've used. Bright Edge is another one. There's one called Ahrefs I've touched a few times. And we also use web crawlers. So Screaming Frog is one that I personally really like that will crawl a web page and give me detailed results on those pages that I've crawled. So it's a large amount of tools. A lot of them are for data gathering and then manipulating the data that we get and presenting it in a way that makes sense to people.
Got it. Makes sense. Lastly, how much is the pay range for this role in the industry?
Yeah, so it does depend a lot on what you do. In general, agency work does not usually pay as much as in-house. So you'll usually look on the higher end when it comes to in-house because you're not usually a part of a team. And if you are, you're a part of a very small team, unless you're with a really, really big company. And if you're with a small business, you might be the only SEO person that they employ. So at least starting in the field between 40 and 60, I started a little on the north end of 40. So closer to 50 is where I started, having no degree and having a very small amount of experience, not a lot of super practical experience. But in terms of an entry level role, usually looking between 40 to 60, especially if you browse like any of the different websites that offer, they'll show you some of those pay ranges. It's a lot of times what you'll see.
Got it. Everett, thank you so much for your time. I've learned a lot about this role. I actually have never spoken to someone who's worked as a search engine optimizer. So thank you for giving me insight, and I'm hoping a lot of people on this channel are learning a lot as well.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. It's great.